Such as
There we go. All right, welcome everyone to our February Inland SoCal Housing Collective monthly meeting. We have a great agenda today, a couple of speakers. We're going to do three speakers today because there's a lot of information to share, which will give us a little bit of a abbreviated time for our updates, but I'm confident we will fit it all in. And so for today's meeting, we have Nova Cottages. We'll do an update on the strategic planning process. And we will also have the Affordable Housing Community Stabilization ASIC 101. Alejandro will come and jump in and present and give us a quick overview of that. So as we get started, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass it over to Karin, who is the co-founder and head of design for Nova Cottages, formerly known as Casa Nova. So they've been in some of our spaces for a little while, and I know have met a few of you, but I thought it'd be great to just really elevate the work that they're doing. It's very innovative, and could be very helpful for our region. So, Karin, you should be able to share your presentation. Welcome.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let me get this started. Or make sharing the right screen. Can you see the full screen?
yes.
Okay,
Yes, you're good
perfect.
to go. Mhm.
Great. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having us. I'm, really excited to be in this room with you all and just really inspired by the work that you all are doing to increase housing supply and provide people access to housing. My name is Karin Najarian from Nova Cottage Co. I'm the head of design and co-founder, and really excited to tell you about our solution. So I just wanted to share some stats. I know we're all aware of, how dire the housing crisis is, but these stats basically drive our solution. Um, Within 5 years, more than 40% of the world's population will lack adequate housing. This means that we need to build 96,000 new affordable homes every day, and obviously we're nowhere near that. So we see it as a team effort to just introduce as many solutions as possible. And housing costs increase drastically while production stagnates. The median sale price of US homes is 40% higher than 5 years ago. So nationally, we lack 4.7 million homes. So this signals to us that we need to be presenting really drastically different and innovative solutions and really push to make these accepted by jurisdictions. So we have long-term goals for making all of the components that we have, the unique components, permittable. But right now we are delivering homes that could really increase density in a lot of neighborhoods and create really nice living spaces. So our mission is to permanently house as many people as quickly as possible in homes that go up quickly and remain highly livable for a lifetime. Nova Cottage Co. is a social impact technology company dedicated to addressing the nation's housing crisis by building the housing industry's first permanent, scalable cottage communities. So introducing the Nova Cozy Cottage community. We have pre-designed and pre-engineered a small catalog of homes that will be arranged in communities to share construction and operation costs throughout the lifetime. Our goal is to get a single cottage cost down to $50K and installable in a day. And this will be fully functional with all of the utilities and site work and everything you need to have a livable home. This cottage community typology allows us to create a gentle density, which would abate the concerns for a lot of the NIMBYs who don't want affordable housing in their neighborhood, and also is a popular form of missing middle housing that fosters community and safety and provides just open spaces for people to be with each other than their houses. And This model is versatile. We will work with, any customers to decide on the best legal framework for either renting or selling these homes. Depending on the site and project requirements, there are usually a few options to explore that will result in return on investment and also benefit the residents. So there's a few things we're innovating on. We use prefabrication to streamline the construction and inspections. We use structural insulated panels, which are human liftable, so you don't need any heavy machinery on site. We have packaged everything in a kit of parts. So on site will arrive the panels and all the other components that you need to finish the house. There's no need, so like the whole package, you don't need to do any Home Depot runs. We'll, count the number of screws and include everything that you need to finish the project. Low impact foundation, we use a type of helical piles or ground screws that don't use concrete, so they don't have any cure time, and they're site agnostic. You need very minimal grading, if any. So there's just reducing the amount of time that you're waiting to even get started on foundation. And we are also planning on getting pre-approvals at all levels, including the county, state, and national levels. So overall, construction costs will be reduced by reducing the number of inspections, reducing the amount of waste, so it's also a greener process, and minimal on-site labor so that our crews have more time to go build other houses because it takes them so little time to build. We also have our off-grid technology, which is part of our whole package of our ultimate vision of providing houses at a very affordable cost in situations where it costs too much to connect to the utilities or it's too much of an unknown factor. Because in a lot of cases, it's like a really big range of how much the sewage and water connections are going to cost. We want to encompass all of that and provide an off-grid package, which will include the solar and alternative energy and storage. So it provides and stores power instantaneously. An electrochemical wastewater reactor, which is the thing we're most excited about, which treats black water and makes it safe to either reuse some of it for irrigation and to eliminate it without a plumbing connection out. And then gray water recycling, which minimizes the resource usage you need less water basically coming in because you're reusing some of the water. And this allows for a grid independent project. It automatically balances the water and power resources among all of the cottages in the community. And there's also an instant diagnosing system, which will tell you if there's anything wrong in your house and tell you how to fix it, or basically alert you and let you know that things are not functioning, and that will basically extend the lifetime of the house by allowing for maintenance to happen efficiently. And so a lot of the stuff that you're seeing on this slide is some of our long-term goals because of the water recycling and the wastewater treatment, but these technologies exist and they exist in the US. It's just a matter of getting them to be accepted in residential settings. And we believe that because we're such in an emergency state that we need to us personally are going to be pushing to get these things accepted. And in some cases, when we're not near a grid, this might be our only option. And so we're providing this as a package. So, how does this compare to other affordable housing construction that's happening now? Our cottage will cost $50K all in. It will have grid independent infrastructure. Construction timeline is 24 hours and it will last more than 60 years. Compared to market rate units, which can cost $250K plus and take anywhere from 2 to 5 years to construct the whole project, versus publicly funded units, which are capital A affordable units, which could cost upwards of $800,000 per unit and take 4 to 10 years to build the whole project. And then emergency housing units, which are like the temporary villages, which cost, with all in, including the infrastructure that's included with them, can cost $50K to $150K per unit, and take 6 months to install and have a very short lifetime. So we ultimately, our vision that we started this company with is that we wanted to provide a quickly deployable home that also lasts a lifetime and is super livable, and doesn't feel like a box. So we have our 2 designs that are ready to fabricate. We have our studio unit, which is 270 square feet, and our cost range for that right now, so we're not at the 50K number yet, we're at the 125 to 175K range. And this is the cost for if you're building 1 unit, as for example, an ADU. So it would be connected to existing infrastructure that exists on site. So you'd be basically piggybacking from an existing house. And it's a range because it'll vary site by site, and there's basically placeholders for permitting and utility costs. But everything else is our known costs because we built one before. We know how much the components cost, and so there's a lot of like known factors. And once we have conversations and we know more about your site, then we can hone in on a final price that will be the final price that you'll have to pay to basically receive a house fully functioning. And our second design is a 1-bedroom. It includes a loft. It's 450 square feet, and it has a little bit of a larger kitchen. It's got a separate bedroom. And this one, we're estimating it would cost 185K to 235K. In terms of timeline, we have, if we're looking at 1 unit construction, the design and engineering has already been done. That's part of our model, is we have those 2 designs that have already been fully designed and engineered, and all the calculations are done. So there's no time spent in the design process. The permitting would take 1 to 3 months. We use structural insulated panels that are pre-approved by HCD, so they have the stickers from the factory-built housing department. And the construction would take about 1 to 3 months because we use the helical piers and the SIPs, and once they arrive on site, they're ready to install. And we're also reducing the number of inspections with the HCD sticker. And after that, certificate of occupancy will take you through the entire process from permitting to certificate of occupancy. Some details about us. We were incorporated in March of 2024. So we've been around for about 2 years. And we're incubated out of the Idea Lab incubator in Pasadena, which has 30 years of experience in starting up companies. So while we're a pretty small team, it's just me and Caroline. Caroline, I didn't even mention her. Oh my God, co-founder, head of engineering. We are the two people who have started this company, and it might just be 2 people, but we have a whole team of supporters in the background who help us basically run the company while we focus on designing and delivering quality houses. And so we've received jurisdiction approval for our cottage in August of 2024. And we have also since opened a showroom, or a model home, that is open for tours in Pasadena. It's right near our office. I know you all are pretty far, but if you're ever in the area, we're happy to show you around our office and show you our model home. And yeah, we have visions for how we want the product that we want to offer, and the types of communities that we want to be creating. And obviously, green space is very important for living. And so we incorporate just like open spaces, green spaces, lots of plants, to create just a healthy and safe environment to live. And we never want, our houses to feel boxy or stifled, and just we want all of our communities to benefit the community that it's being built in. This is our team. So Bill Gross is the founder of Idea Lab, also the founder of Nova Cottage Co., and he's the chairman of our board. He's, serial entrepreneur, started all sorts of companies, mostly in the green energy space, and just very social-minded companies all around. Caroline is my co-founder and head of engineering. Caltech graduated, or Caltech educated, has a lot of experience with low-cost, high-volume manufacturing, and so she's been, super helpful in kind of countering my design background, and basically going back to like first principles of like, how do we solve this problem? And the solution is just to build it like cars, and mass manufacture homes to really bring down the cost. And I am Karin Najarian, head of design, and I graduated from Woodbury University with an 5-year architecture degree, and I have specialized in net zero residential construction and how new construction technologies apply to building housing. Thank you. Really happy to answer any questions. I know this slide deck probably didn't cover everything, but here's my email and Caroline's email and our general email, and we're always happy to meet with you and respond to your emails and answer any questions, and happy to do that now as well. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, great presentation. I assume these meet retrofit and fire standards.
Yes, okay. We are currently working on a fire hardened package that will meet the Chapter 7A and IBHS requirements. Yes, Dawn.
Something's wrong with my picture.
It's okay, I see you.
You can see me?
I see like half of you. There you go.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with my picture here. My camera. Anyway, thank you for your presentation. I have had a chance to check out your website and heard from Melanie, a few other people who've been talking about what you guys are doing. I'm really excited by this concept, particularly the community concept. I'm actually working on a project right now that involves focusing on creating new affordable housing options and opportunities for aging adults, naturally occurring affordable, not subsidized type. And one of the projects within our plan includes trying to create a supportive living community for aging adults in Western San Bernardino County. So I am definitely going to be reaching out to you and talking about how we might work together to make that dream a reality.
Yeah. You said some key words, which is naturally affordable. We also, that's our whole model, is we think houses should just not cost what they're costing. And that's the main way that we can get, living costs for the residents to be affordable. And yeah, the subsidies method is something that we're not super interested in. So yes, keywords for us for sure. Please reach out.
Well, thank you.
Oh, yes, Wendy.
Yeah, this is such amazing company that you guys have vision like that. I could just imagine if you tailor this to address kind of infant and toddler homelessness issue that's on the rise. And can you imagine like cottages full of mommies and young families and babies? That would be so amazing. So thank you for sharing this.
Thank you for that idea and vision. I agree. I think the studio units especially are really good for small families, single mom, single parent with child. Yeah, thank you. I hope that happens.
So just to piggyback, and I know Heather left a comment in the chat that I could read off too. But one thing that is super exciting when I met you all or heard about Nova Cottages was the ability for this to be relevant to so many of our subpopulations. So as Wendy had specified for single parents, for I know, Wendy, you're a strategic partner in the maternal health network. So, mothers and their children, our senior community, which there's a lot of senior initiatives in our region happening, as well as shared housing. So, when I really saw your product, I had thought of how this would be applicable for so many different folks in our region, a part of the collective, and how this might easily transfer to some of their initiatives and goals. So I'm glad everyone's seeing that. But in the chat, Heather asked, what is your anticipated timeline to get the units to 50K price point?
Yeah, we have a roadmap that leads us to 50K for the studio cottage in Q4 of 2032. That's our goal. That's where we're headed. But meanwhile, it'll be decreasing every year as we build more projects and we do a bunch of bulk orders and we set up our factories. And just, yeah, every year it'll be decreasing.
And I'm sure it's earthquake safe because in California.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. All the components are earthquake safe. It's also just a very light house. It's mostly made of foam. So there's just not enough mass for earthquakes to have like a big effect. But yes, the ground screws and the zips are all structurally graded. Yeah.
So I have another question. I know you mentioned in your PowerPoint having your staff, having your team set up the cottages, right? And so right now, if that was, if we have a partner here in the meeting that had acquired some surplus land from a city, for example, or actually that one. So if they just had land, we'll just talk a generic private market, they had land, they wanted to build this, what would that timeline look like? Would it include, look, Heather has land, so we have someone.
Great.
There's folks that have land that want to do something. What would that timeline look like? Would it include them having their own construction staff? Do you have staff on ready for, implementation for that? What would that look like if that was to turn around today?
Yeah. So usually our first step is we ask for your address and we do feasibility studies and look at your project requirements and see like how many units we can fit on your lot legally and physically, and give you some options. And then once we're ready to proceed, we'll initiate conversations with the city or county. And it always helps if you all have connections with the city or county already. Then we're able to just like, basically start that conversation. And sometimes we like to have a close relationship with whoever's approving our plan. So we'll be like meeting with them every so often and like going there physically and having phone calls, just to really speed up that process. And then after that, it's a matter of ordering the materials, and there's nothing that's super long lead time. Even the custom materials, which would be the structural insulated panels, don't take like max 2 months to assemble, depending on how many projects are in our manufacturer's pipeline. And then that's kind of like the biggest thing. And then each component will then be delivered on site. And we don't have a dedicated construction crew in our team, so we're still in the process of creating partnerships with contractors, basically, and their crews. So if you have a crew that you like to work with, we'd love to get connected with them. And if not, we are happy to choose one of the ones that we have already vetted. And then construction construction happens, and then we'll get you certificate of occupancy. And yes, Heather.
Sorry, I'm really sick today, so that's why I had my
Oh,
video
no.
off. But
That's
got
okay.
my Raider beanie on, and this could be such an ideal project for my organization. We have land, I have a board member that's owns a construction company. We have great relationship with the city, and we're looking for this exact type thing to build out. So I guess I would love to connect with you offline and set up a meeting. But my question too is, do you guys, since you're doing this project, have in-house connections already to financing of it? Or is it like a capital campaign style where you have to come up with it all up front? I mean, I am curious about those components of it too, or have you guys thought through that piece of it yet?
That's something we're currently working on. So I will have to get back to you on that. Yes, so definitely reach out, and I'd love to continue talking about that with you.
I would love to. I'm going to put my email in the chat, but
Okay.
I'm also going to grab your info, and we could definitely. Melanie, thank you for having this group here. This could be a perfect solution for what we have availability wise. And anyway, wonderful.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
I pulled the emails out off the slide and I put it in the chat. So if anyone needs,
Thank you.
Karin's and Caroline's is both in here
Yes,
for
thank
you
you.
all. So they also just rebranded their website and it looks beautiful. And so congratulations on that. I know that's a big overhaul. And so if there's any more questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Karin, if you're going to hang on, you could, answer some of those in there. But now we're going to just go ahead and move on to our next speaker.
Thank you.
Don't mind, and I will. Awesome. So right now we're going to just the meeting is a little bit out of order than we normally do. We're going to do some general announcements right now, touch base before our ASIC speaker comes on at 2. And so we had to fit them in because it's released this month. We couldn't wait another month to get it in, so we worked around that. And so Alejandro will be coming on shortly, and we'll start that presentation at 2. But in the meantime, I want to introduce Lisa Watson. And so I'm sure you've probably been flooded with some emails from me and from the newsletter about our strategic planning process that we recently launched. And so I asked Lisa to jump on and to share a little bit about that for you all.
You're on mute, Lisa.
So sorry. Thank you. I was just singing your praises, Miss Melanie. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me today. And I'm so happy to be here at the member meeting. I told Melanie I'm going to hang out beyond my presentation because I just want to get a sense of the membership and what you guys do during your member meetings. But I want to do a really quick high-level overview of what the strategic planning process looks like for you guys. And then the last slide is really a plea that you guys complete that survey. It will take you about 30 minutes to complete, but it is going to be so important. It is really the cornerstone of the data that we need to move this strategic planning process forward. So I'm gonna start with that, and I'm going to end with that because it's the most important message that I deliver today for you guys. But beyond that, let me just share with you guys kind of what this process looks like. We've got a 6-month engagement with the SoCal Housing Collective to build out a strategic plan that will really guide them over the next 3 to 5 years. And so we're kind of already in phase 2, which is the community engagement part. The first phase of this project was really connecting with Melanie, kind of getting a download of all of the background documents to make me familiar with the organization. I am a master in process, but not a subject matter expert as it pertains to this. I do have a little bit of a background in managing a shelter and transitional housing in one of my previous careers, so I do have some context, but you guys are much larger than that. I will bring that context to this, but I am really I'm a process person. You guys are the subject matter experts, and that's why the data that we're collecting from you during this community engagement phase is so important to this plan that will be developed. So we are currently in this second column right now, which is the community engagement component of it. We will be doing a number of things to collect data that help to drive our decisions. The first one is that partnership survey. So in that partnership survey, we're really asking for you guys to identify what has worked in the structure of the SoCal Housing Collective. What do you guys want for its future? Where are your pain points as it pertains to the specific pillar work that we're doing? And how can we use that to kind of activate and elevate the collective in its next phase of development? One of the things that is important to point out as a component of this process, because I'm sure many of you guys have participated in strategic planning before, this is not a programmatic strategic plan, although there will be elements of that. This is really more process driven. So we're trying to understand and build an infrastructure for the next iteration of what the housing collective will be. So in that community engagement component, we have the survey that we're asking anyone who has been engaged with the housing collective over the last 15 months to engage with us, to give us some information. We will also be then using that data to help identify sector-specific areas that we need to dive deep into. So that survey is going to then inform who we actually engage for focus group discussions. And then the last component that we're doing for community engagement purposes is we're going to be interviewing some organizations that represent partnerships that we should have, but maybe don't currently have, or they're not as strong as we'd like to see them, as well as some potential peer organizations to see how do they function and how have they developed a sustainable infrastructure so that we can take those lessons learned and apply them to the SoCal Housing Collective. The second part of that community engagement process is really meeting with the board and going over what we learn and then using those to craft out what are kind of the outcomes that we're seeking to achieve at the end of this strategic planning process, and then reverse engineering how we're going to actually achieve those outcomes. So we'll be meeting throughout the months of April and May to make some of those determinations. We will be engaging pillar-specific workshops to help develop the how of the what, which is determined by the advisory board. So as we move into that last phase where we do those pillar workshops, we will also be establishing a long-range financial plan, documenting the decisions made, and then we will circle back around to the community that helped build the plan to confirm what we heard and then to finalize the plan itself. So a couple of things that, like I told you, that very front end community engagement process is meant to ensure. We want to gather what is members' perception right now of the housing collective. What is our role in the community? How is our operating structure working, and where do we have pain points, and what impact are we seeing across partners as well as sectors? We want to be able to identify where are the things that trip us up, where are the barriers that prevent forward progress from happening, and where do opportunities exist in our environment in which we can actually leverage that for future activities. And the last thing that we're doing primarily through research and those key person interviews is, again, like identifying what kind of financial models will help secure us in the long run to be sustainable. So you guys don't currently have like a membership structure, even though you guys have an operating structure that tends to members' needs. And so we need to take a look at what are all of the kind of fund development opportunities that we may be missing that we need to establish so that we can be sustainable in the long run. And then the last thing that we were looking for is, and what matters most, like how could we demonstrate that we've actually moved the needle on any one of our priorities that we've established as a collective. So what does the timing look like? We just released the member survey yesterday. So please, it's probably in your inbox right now. Start it and finish it. We've got an open process of 2 weeks for you guys to complete that survey. Again, super duper important. Everything is predicated on that survey and the data that we collect. And it helps to ensure that whatever the future of the collective looks like is representative of the people that it actually serves. So while I know you guys have great trust and faith in Melanie and your entire advisory board, by participating in the survey, you're ensuring that your needs, your wants, needs, and desires are represented in the decisions that we make in the future. So member survey, please take the member survey. Listening sessions will come after the member survey because we're using the learning that we develop through the survey data to inform who we actually get in the table to gather additional information about sector-specific pain points and opportunities. And then we will be doing those concurrent with those key person interviews. So who do we want to take the survey? Like I said, anybody who's been engaged with the collective over the last 15 months. What we're trying to understand is we want to test what is our role in the, housing ecosystem, wealth development kind of area of influence. We want to understand, does our mission kind of resonate with folks, or are there opportunities for us to strengthen that mission? We want to understand, how effective are our pillars in reaching some of the outcomes that we have established in our last iteration, right? We want to understand kind of what should we be focusing on in the future. And then we also want to understand from your perspective, how do we demonstrate our results? So again, super important. It's open now. Please take it at your earliest convenience. And with that, you guys can screenshot my info, but you guys will likely have it. If you get an email from me, if you receive a reach out, please respond. I look forward to working with all of you guys in partnership. With that, I will hand it back over to Miss Melanie.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate it. So I am just, we might, okay, cool. So I was just getting the go ahead. So we're going to hold announcements and we're going to go over and start our AHSC presentation, AHSC 101, just so that way we have enough time to get through that. It's super important. So Alejandro Huerta was able to join. He's from Enterprise Community Partners. And guys, we are very lucky to have him. He did an in-person workshop this morning in Orange County, and now we get him on a virtual one in ours. So he's working today. He's moving. So Alejandro, we really appreciate you coming and sharing. We know that it's time sensitive. We know that last year our region was successful in drawing down 2 different AHSC applications, and we look forward to this next round, this next release, and seeing what is available, seeing what that looks like for our region. And so we're happy to have you. So if you want to get started, I'll pull up your presentation if you'd like.
Yeah,
If you want,
please.
I'll share and go ahead and get started. I'll do that while you're talking.
Okay, great. So hi, everyone. I'm Alejandro Huerta with Enterprise Community Partners, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity to present today. I'm going to do an AHSC 101 overview of the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program. I just want to also say, echoing what Melanie said, thanks to the workshop we had last round, there were successful projects for AHSC in the last round of awards. So we hope to continue to do that. There's a lot of energy now in the inland Southern California region, and we hope to build off what we did last time. So I'll be sharing a kind of a big overview, like I said, of the program, and then share at the very end some case studies that were successful in this last round of AHSC. Feel free to ask me any questions in the chat, or you can email me afterwards as well. So with that, we'll move ahead. And for those of you who do not know the AHSC program, the first slide, hopefully, if you can advance it, Melanie, kind of gives us an overview of what it is. So just big picture, this is a state funding source for affordable housing. It runs on an annual cycle. As you can see here, the money comes from the cap and invest dollars. They used to be called cap and trade. Those feed into these CCI, or California Climate Investment Programs. And what makes AHSC unique and different is that it funds both housing and transportation together I want to emphasize that it's a joint funding source. In other words, just can't have the housing by itself and then the transportation by itself. It has to be one cohesive application that combines housing and transportation improvements. I also want to share really quick before we move to the next slide is there was a recent piece of legislation which sort of said that this would be extended till 2045 with $800 million in terms of the NOFA amount on an annual basis. That won't start until next year, but there's, some changes that are being proposed by the governor's office, and we don't know yet what that's going to look like. But let's just assume that AHSC will continue to run like it is now for this immediate round and the next. So we can move ahead. Okay, thanks. So what AHSC funds basically are these three things. And this is an oversimplification, but I just wanted to make the point that it really is emphasized on funding new affordable housing developments in California and buses and trains and other types of improvements that improve transit use and specifically increase ridership. And I'll talk more about that later. And lastly, it also funds bike lanes and sidewalks. So these sort of three major components all together equal AHSC of the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program. And if you go to the next slide, what that translates into in terms of for the developers in the room who do affordable housing, AHSC is a gap filler. It's a last-in type of funding source for shovel-ready projects. It's a perm loan, and basically it's deferred payment. It's got a 3% simple interest, and it's 55 years. And it's a mandatory fee of 0.42 to be paid annually. And I'm sharing this just because a lot of affordable housing developers always want to know what the terms are. But important for everyone, just generally speaking, this is a permanent source of financing. It is a loan. And I'll go next into the next slide on, remember I mentioned it also funds transportation improvements. So these are the terms for the transportation improvements. This usually means that for an AHSC application, you'll require two critical partners. One would be obviously the affordable housing developer, and then two, just as important, is a public partner, which usually takes the form of a city or county or other type of jurisdiction. And I see on the call, there's some folks from Riverside that did this on some successful Riverside projects. So big picture, it is a grant to cities to build the bike and ped infrastructure. It's used during the construction period, and it's a reimbursable grant, meaning that the city Public Works Department, for example, has to be able to fund this up front and then get paid for it later on a reimbursement basis. It's a 0% grant, and it's got no mandatory fee. So again, this is if you apply and you're awarded and you get an award, this is what it would go for the transportation improvements. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, AHSC runs on an annual cycle, and what I wanted to share is what the next immediate round, round 10, will be. So it's going to have an estimated notice of funding availability of $650 million. That's available to any applicants throughout the state. And one thing to realize is that the maximum per application is now 50 million. That did change from the initial rounds of the program. So a lot is at stake and a lot of award money is available per application. There is no limit on the number of applications that any given jurisdiction can apply for. There is a limit, however, in terms of how much any one developer can ask for. And that's any one developer can't ask for more than $100 million throughout their combination of projects throughout the state. So that's the kind of what's at stake. It's obviously AHSC is one of the only now funding sources for affordable housing in the state. So let's go to the next slide. So here's how an example AHSC application request plays out. So as you could see here, the total of 50 million doesn't mean necessarily that you want to ask for the full 50 million, but I just wanted to show you this as an illustration. So number one, On the housing loan side, as you can see at the top here, any developer can ask for a maximum of 35 million. Again, not everyone will ask for that much. Usually it's the larger projects that will ask for that much. And then the second and third buckets there, transportation and program, those together cannot exceed 15 million. And I'll note that, for example, here in the 13 million for the transportation, that's the money that goes basically as a reimbursable grant to the city and the transit partners to make one cohesive ASIC application. And the program money is meant for community-based organizations who are doing programs like anti-displacement workforce development programs. So that's just one example. So if we keep moving forward, this just spells out what I said before, 35 million max for the housing. So you're eligible for ASIC if, and I'm going to run through this real quick. So if you're a housing developer and you're proposing an affordable housing development, the loan that I mentioned earlier, the permanent loan, is available for units up to 60% of the average median income, 60% AMI. Most of the projects that apply to ASIC fall into that first category of type of project, meaning new construction from the ground up. And both affordable rental and affordable homeownership projects are eligible. The vast majority of projects, as you might suspect, are rental projects. And I'll note both multifamily and senior housing can apply. There's a slight disadvantage for senior projects applying, but it doesn't mean you can't apply. And then the last two types of projects that are also available are conversion of sort of non-residential to residential and acquisition and rehab. We usually do not see those last two a lot, but it is possible. And certainly some projects that have done those last two types of projects have been awarded. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide. So if you're an affordable housing developer or a housing department or a housing agency, if you are interested in working with developers, and this is also important for the planning departments out there, is the developer has to have in hand by the annual ASIC deadline these three major things. One, they have to have site control, and there's a variety of ways that a developer can demonstrate that. Two, and this is really critical, is they have to have both their land use approvals and environmental clearances by the application deadline. And obviously, this requires a lot of collaboration with the local cities, planning departments, et cetera, to make sure that the developers have those in hand. And then lastly, and this has been a bit of a challenge, and I want to emphasize it, is HCD, the Housing and Community Development Department in Sacramento, requires that in order to apply to AHSC, the developer has to show that they have the experience to build the type of project that they're proposing for AHSC funding. And the way they do that is by showing two similar projects that were built in the last 10 years. And this makes it very challenging, just to be transparent with all of you, for emerging developers or developers that don't have a portfolio that can show two projects in the last 10 years. In which case, usually what happens is someone will have to partner with a larger affordable housing developer to meet this requirement. But these are the three major things that you must have by the time of any ASIC application deadline. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to show you next are some examples of awarded ASIC applicants and sort of what they do to get the money awarded to them. And these are the characteristics or traits of these projects. So if we go to the next slide, ASIC is a very, first of all, competitive program. It is probably oversubscribed at least 2-to-1 every single round. And what we see, though, out of a general pattern of projects that are awarded are, I'll first start with the housing development itself. We usually see that most of the housing developments that are proposed for AHSC funding are well over 100 units. There are some exceptions to this, but again, this is just a generality. The next most important thing to think about is here, the picture of the bus, for example, here in LA, is that you have to partner with a transit agency or a city that runs transit to basically create and include a transit project in your application that's going to increase ridership. And that is 20% of the overall score, which is really critical because out of 100 points, that makes a huge difference. And then the next and the third most important things are you have to work with a city or a county or locality to propose new bike and pedestrian improvements that will be part of your ASIC application. That's the second largest set of points. And then thirdly, and this is a new emphasis, is community engagement. It's the third largest set of points. It influences the narrative score of the application. And what I mean by community engagement, in case you're curious, is partnerships not only with the local community, but also with local community-based organizations. I think I saw someone on the chat, for example, was a community organization. For example, anti-displacement, workforce development partners, but that's not limited to that. And then also community engagement consists of the engagement that both the city and the transit agency have done for their ASIC, sort of for their housing and their transportation planning. So with that, let's go to the next slide. So I want to emphasize that the 20% of the overall score comes from transit projects, and this traditionally has been challenging in inland Southern California, which is why I want to give you some examples of what has been done. So recently, the first two options were used in the ASIC applications that were awarded, or a combination thereof, which is to purchase buses to expand or increase service. And then the second one is to actually use the ASIC funding to fund the operations of the bus service. And then the last three are much harder to do, but are not impossible. In fact, the third one, a transit station, was used in one of the applications. So the applicant was using ASIC funding in partnership with the transit agency to basically build a new station to increase ridership. And then the last two are more creative things. Some of them don't apply transit signal priority. That's normally done in combination with the city and train car purchase. This is more for like the Metrolink, for example, or other commuter rail that runs through a geography. I bolded here the words that are the most important to think about, which is you have to increase ridership in somehow. If you go to the next slide, the reason I'm emphasizing that is because, as you could see here in bold, you can't take credit for what's there already. This is often a misunderstanding of the AHSC program. A lot of developers come to me and say, well, my project is perfect because it's located right next to these bus lines, and therefore doesn't that make me competitive? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. The state is looking to award projects that are doing above and beyond what's already there. So it must be a net new ridership. So one example of that, which again is sometimes disheartening for people to hear, is you cannot use ASIC funding just to replace buses, because that's not going to necessarily give you the ridership increase that you need. So it's very important to think about the first point here, that anything that a transit operator can justify that will increase ridership, that's what we're looking for. And I'll share some examples of that in the case studies at the end. So go to the next slide. In addition to the transit partnership, you also need to include these two things. And this is actually where, if you remember the previous slide that I showed you, the second largest set of points come from the bicycle and pedestrian improvements. So here's an example from Santa Ana, where you basically have to partner with the city public works or transportation department of your affordable housing development location to basically identify 2 miles of new bikeways and 2,000 feet of either improved or new sidewalk improvements. And this is really critical because, as I said, it's the second largest points. It also requires a lot of collaboration with your city departments. So it's something that can't be forgotten and is really critical to making a successful AHSC application. Next slide. So people often ask me, if I apply to AHSC, do all the offsite improvements have to be part of or next to my affordable housing development? The good news is that the answer is no. You have a 1 mile project area, which is defined basically as this center of your housing development is the center. And then you can basically go out a mile from there for any of the bicycle, pedestrian, and transit improvements. And you can even go beyond the 1 mile, but the rule is that there has to be some sort of bus station or bus stop within the mile or entrance to the bikeway, for example, for it to qualify in order for it to go outside of that project area. So no, you do not have to have all the offsite improvements adjacent to your housing site. It can be anywhere within a mile. Next slide, please. So finally, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that AHSC funds shovel-ready projects. And alongside that is you cannot fund something that's already begun construction. So that's just something to be aware of. If you are awarded AHSC funding, you are expected to be able to complete the projects are your housing development within a 5-year time period. It's usually not a problem. I do want to note, though, that the funding doesn't become available until after your housing financing closes. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, you're going to have to work collaboratively with the city and transit agency to make the application cohesive and whole. And there's a couple of options there. You're going to have to either enter into a formal joint applicant partnership with the city, meaning the city is a joint applicant alongside you, the developer. There's a second option, though, which is becoming more and more popular, which is that the city, to build the bike and ped improvements, just basically says, we're going to sign on as a subrecipient, but we won't be an applicant. And if awarded, the developer will pass through all the funding to us for that reimbursable grant. So 2 options there. So it gives you a little bit of wiggle room in terms of how a city wants to partner with a housing developer. Next slide, please. And I'll answer questions at the end. So in summary, a perfect score is not required to win AHSC funding, and there are many paths to winning an application award. But greenhouse gas score is very important. As I said, the transit piece by itself is 20%. And as I also mentioned before, you really have to include all the bicycle and pedestrian project components to be competitive. And you have to also have the transit component that increases ridership. I do want to mention, though, and Melanie referred to this, is there is a set aside for inland Southern California, meaning that per round, and this is thanks to advocacy from stakeholders like this group, there is a guaranteed 1 award every round of AHSC in inland Southern California. So it's a minimum. So basically, if anyone submits an application and does not have any fatal flaws, you're guaranteed an award. That said, like I said previously, there were 2 projects, so you're not going to necessarily only have 1. You can have more than 1 awardee, like was done last round. So we just want to get the word out for that. Next slide. So now I'm going to share these case studies. So one of them is a project by National Core. This was in the city of Ontario. This is the phase 2 project. And if you remember the beginning slides, I said that projects tend to be over 100 units. That was definitely the case here, 144 units, so a very large project. And then the other thing, as I mentioned before, is you really need to have the net new ridership increase. So here, I provided technical assistance on this application, by the way, so I know it very well. We partnered with Omnitrans, the transit agency there, to expand bus service for one of the future bus rapid systems that's going through Ontario. And that was successful enough to increase the GHG reductions. And then also the developer in partnership with the city was very creative in creating a new Class 1 bikeway and walking path through an existing park. So because of their efforts, they maximized their scoring and were able to get a total of 20.9 million in the housing loan and almost 10 million for the transit and transportation improvements. Next slide. The other project that was awarded, I did not work on this one specifically, but our technical assistant partners at CCRH, the California Coalition for Rural Housing, provided technical assistance. And I'll talk more about the technical assistance later. This is the Abode Communities Park Lane Homes project, which is a very large project, and a subset of that here was awarded in Desert Hot Springs. As I noted, this is a rural project with 87 units. So as I mentioned before, this is not the reaching that 100 unit that I mentioned is important as a characteristic, but it didn't have to because it was a rural projects, and rural projects tend to have a fewer number of units. And rural projects are only really competing against other rural projects. So you don't have to compete against the other ones like in more urbanized areas. And we provided the technical assistance to create this really amazing opportunity with Sunline Transit Agency to basically use AHSC funding to fund a new transit hub and for the city to purchase a van. So all in all, the total award amount was 36 million. So kudos to both of the National Corps and Abode teams for getting two projects in inland Southern California, which has been a really great streak recently for that region. So if we go to the next slide. Wanted to share the big picture timeline. So we are currently, as I said, on the eve of round 10. You'll notice that this first part of the timeline says that the NOFA is coming out in March. The state recently, about a week or so or less ago, said that that's probably going to be around March 4th. So if you have any developer partners or know of anyone who's interested, this is going to be a really tight turnaround. So maybe this year isn't the best year, but if you do, if the NOFA comes out at the beginning of March, you have basically 60 calendar days from there for the application period, which means that we will have a deadline of early May. So really tight, compressed timeline with awards in December of this year. And remember, if I remember at the beginning, I said that there's a sort of some timelines, and one of them is the 5-year completion period. So basically, if you were awarded funding in this round, you would have till the end of 2031 to build the affordable housing development, as well as all the transportation and transit improvements. Next slide. Okay, so let's get into the meat of the kind of how I can help here. So if you have any questions, you can contact me. My email is there, and certainly these slides can be shared. Even if you have an idea for a potential project or maybe are not sure about it, feel free to reach out to me. We're in the capacity building phase right now. And by the way, I should have mentioned that Enterprise is the primary contractor for the Strategic Growth Council that co-administers the AHSC program. So right now we're providing free technical assistance to anyone who really has questions. And in addition to that, if you know of anyone or if you have a fully baked project that you think would be ready for AHSC funding for this next immediate round 10, you can go to the SGC website shown here, sgc.ca.gov, and you can request technical assistance, which is that second button there. And what you would do is fill out sort of the particulars of your affordable housing development, and then that gets sort of routed to me, and then we do an intake call. And if the state determines that the project is financially ready, feasible, and also meets all the requirements, then you're eligible for free technical assistance. And like in the two previous examples for Desert Hot Springs and Ontario, you can get a technical assistance provider to walk you through the entire AHSC application process, and someone will review your application to make sure it meets all the requirements and is also competitive. So again, you can feel free to reach out to me, or if you have a project, request the technical assistance from the state. But just will warn you that because of the tight timeline, you should probably do this ASAP. So with that, I think that's the last slide. And I will look at some of the Q&A here. And if you want to also come off of mute, you can ask me directly. So let's see. Someone was asking, there are disadvantages for senior housing to access this. Yes. What are the disadvantages? So unfortunately, because SGC created the guidelines to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, by their very nature, seniors drive less. So the disadvantage is that senior developments have less of a greenhouse gas reduction output than multifamily does. But it doesn't eliminate you from applying. It just means that you would have to have a really strong transit component to make up for that difference. But we can, as part of the technical assistance, we can run the numbers and get you the GHG output to see what difference it makes. But just anecdotally from experience, it does make a pretty huge difference, unfortunately. That may change in the future, but for this next immediate round, that change will not happen until later. And then the other question was about whether it's 1 mile radius, 1 mile walking, driving. It's 1 mile as the crow flies, so just a straight line from the housing development out. So not walking or driving. So I hope this was helpful. Does anyone have any other questions? You either want to put it in the chat or come off mute. And I noticed someone put here about Inland County's legal services providing the anti-displacement. So if anyone wants to move forward, you can contact Veronica. Thanks, Veronica. That's a good example of how you can work with someone to get an anti-displacement program going on in your ASIC application, and the ASIC program will actually pay for that. So that's great to know. Anything else? Or Melanie, do you have any questions or thoughts? I haven't seen, to be honest with you, any projects in inland Southern California. I know there's maybe some reapplications in Upland, and there's some questions about projects in Indio, but I haven't seen anything commitment in terms of the Indio project, but I know the Upland one wants to reapply.
That's great. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to see if there's, if we can elevate anything. I know it's in the pipeline, especially with such a quick turnaround time. I wanted to just follow up on the transportation component too. I know that it was rounds further back maybe, and now we know that Adobe was able to secure funding with Sunline, and I know that there's some dilemmas with Sunline in the past. What is the minimum, and you might, but just to reiterate, the transportation guidelines for those partners to come in, it doesn't have to be with for RTA or RCT, what are those qualifications for those partners in this application?
Yeah, great question. So the qualifications are basically that the transit agency has to have an unfunded project that it can use ASIC to help fund. And that it's similar to the housing development. It has to be shovel ready. There has to be, if it's like a large project like that transit station that it was in the Desert Hot Springs example, it has to have some evidence that it's going to be fully funded, or else the state won't pay for that, because in other words, they don't want to pay for something that's not going to be built. So you have to have some evidence of other funding commitments. And then in terms of like the nitty gritty, the most important thing really is that the transit agency has to be able and willing to partner with the housing developer. And what that usually means, like I said, is there has to be some sort of like a side agreement between the affordable housing developer or the city and the transit agency. And this sort of like a formalized commitment letter, in other words, from the transit agency. And in terms of the completion, the same rule applies. So if a transit agency has a project, they have to commit to be able to build that in a 5-year time period. And also, they can't sort of say, we're going to split off from the housing developer. It is a truly collaborative application. So if the housing finance doesn't come through, unfortunately, that means the whole project's funding has to be disencumbered. And then lastly, and perhaps most importantly, the transit agency has to be willing to commit to not only identify the transit ridership program that will increase ridership, but they also have to, one, tell us how much the budget request is, and two, and this is the critical piece, is they have to basically do the ridership modeling themselves either in-house or hire, or someone has to hire sort of a consultant to do the ridership modeling. And they put that on the letterhead, not of the city, but of the transit agency, and sign that. And sometimes this is challenging, as you're alluding to, because a transit agency board will need to sign off on that. And if they're not willing to do that by the application deadline, then unfortunately, the affordable housing developer doesn't have anything to work with. So that's critical to kind of have these conversations early on and making sure that you can do it within the deadline. So I would say those are the three most important things. And also I would say that transit agency has to be really flexible and creative sometimes in figuring out what the transit projects are. There's sometimes some transit agencies kind of fall back to some simple ideas, but if you think out of the box, there's really a lot of opportunity. For example, that Desert Hot Springs, the transit hub was really a creative idea. So I think all of those elements combined are really critical for a partnership with the transit agency. Other questions or thoughts? Last thing I want to say is if you are not ready for this round, we do long-term capacity building. Enterprise is under contract with the state to provide capacity building. And I think basically the good thing about that is if you have any kind of long-term interest in thinking about AHSC and whether your project may or may not could qualify, then just talk to me and we can talk through that out loud and look at the site together, et cetera, et cetera. So again, feel free to reach out to me directly. We could schedule a call and then figure out if that project that you're thinking about is good, is viable, or if maybe ASIC is not the perfect funding source. So I would recommend that.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. I'm so appreciative of you coming and just sharing out with us, and just the details of round 10. We truly appreciate it. And I hope that folks here, if they know that if they have projects in mind, if they have land site control, if they have partnerships with their cities and transportation, that they truly consider it for this round or next.
Yeah.
And to connect with you, if you could drop your email in the chat, that'd be great, just so that way folks can easily just pull it off.
Yep, I just did.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great.
All right. Well, I'm going to hop off. Thanks, everyone. Feel free
Thank
to
you.
contact me if you have any questions. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. And so for our last 15 minutes of the meeting, we're going to move forward with just some pillar updates and general announcements. I'm going to just share my screen real quick again. Actually, no, I got everything kind of mixed up with the presentation, so I could easily go off. Oh, there it is. So just some general announcements we want to make is we have a couple events. We have some busy months ahead of us, and I wanted to put some dates in front of everyone just so that they can see, maybe put a hold on their calendar if it's necessary, as we get caught up with sending some save the dates and of upcoming events. So besides just our partner survey, which Lisa was able to elevate, we also have our annual Bank On Forum that we have a date set for April 8th, Wednesday, April 8th. So go ahead and, if you plan on attending that or would like to put a hold, it will be in that morning, first half of the day. More details and location will be coming out shortly. We also have our annual Affordable Housing Mixer, which is set for Friday, April 17th, and it will be in downtown Riverside. And then additionally, our next Inland SoCal Housing Collective meeting will be March 25th. Because the third week conflicts with the state conference, Housing California's conference, and I know a number of folks will be there, including myself. We decided just to push the meeting back a week to March 25th. And so you should have had that calendar invite update already sent to you. I just wanted to make sure that we elevated that so you weren't all thrown off. So we will be meeting again March 25th for our general collective meeting. And now to kind of jump into some quick pillar updates because of time, and I just want to make sure that we have space for general member updates, as there's a lot going on. I know there's a lot of folks here that can provide some context to some organizing around affordable housing in this space. I want to leave time for that. So I'm hoping we could do quick updates for each pillar. And I saw if Ayako, are you still on?
I'm here.
Oh, would you be able to start us off first, jump in and do just a quick 2-3 minute update for expansion of housing
Sure.
solutions?
Good afternoon, everyone. Ayako Utsumi here with Mary Erickson Community Housing. And I lead the expansion of housing solutions pillar. We meet the second Thursday of every month from 9 to 10 a.m. So second Thursday, 9 to 10 a.m. Our next meeting will be March 12th. That's March 12th. And unfortunately, I will be out of the country. I'm not able to attend, but Melanie will lead the call. So what are we about? We're about what can our region do to bring more housing of different types to the IE. So everything from single family detached, gentle density, higher density multifamily, and permanent supportive, and then everything in between. So this year, continuing our trend from last year, we wanted to continue a focus on the single family ownership models, and also the small lot, big impact initiative out of LA. We would like to see what are they doing to take all the thousands of small lots that many jurisdictions own, or even some privately owned, and really put them to use. What would that take? What would that look like? So we want to keep track of what is LA doing, and then how can we take this innovative approach and make it work for the IE. So very exciting things to come. There was just an announcement. There was a delay on their request for qualifications of developers and builders, but something was approved last week, and so it should be coming out very soon. But again, just to see what are they doing, how could we take some learnings and apply that to the IE. So that's small lot development and then home ownership. Also, we would like to look at and highlight, perhaps there are some innovative types of new construction that are out there, everything from modular, manufactured, MH Advantage to traditional site build, etc. What's happening in our region. We'd like to highlight those things. And then we'd also like to highlight those applications for very larger multifamily and homeless housing applications. So everything in between. If you want to learn more, please reach out to Mel to get on our list. Again, second Thursday of the month, 9 to 10. And again, we will meet next on March 12th. And Mel, I wanted to highlight that the Affordable Housing Mixer, this is our annual in-person business-to-business mixer. We've had a number of organizations meet and actually make deals. So this is an opportunity to make some real impactful outcomes-based connections. Mel, the time is 4 to 6 p.m., correct? Yes. Okay. So it's April 17, Friday, April 17, 4 to 6 p.m. So it is at the end of the day. So we hope that that will be more convenient for you to join us. And then we will have refreshments as well. So it's a great time to network and meet your fellow affordable housing sector colleagues. So again, please join us. If there's something that a topic you would like to see that's on the housing development side or housing financing side, please do reach out. We'd be happy to explore that and perhaps present that to the group. So we're always open to your ideas if you have a question. Thanks, Mel. Back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so we'll release more information about kind of the mixer agenda as we have some special invites for guests to come, and so once those are confirmed, we'll release more information about the mixer. One thing what I'm going to do is provide a quick update for our wealth building, educate and advocate. We have some special meetings planned with that I want to elevate for the city of Riverside, special presentations. But to quickly go into our wealth building and preservation pillar, Jay normally provides an update, but he's in transit up to a event for financial empowerment in Central Valley area. And so I'm going to jump in and provide a quick update. In our last meeting, we reviewed a bunch of different items. A couple of things that came out of it, I want to make sure we elevate the training of trainer workshop that Jay conducts with some of our financial partners as well as some of our organizations, our service providers to help understand Bank on Certified product, what its usefulness, how it works, and some of the language and best practices when working with those populations who want to use the product or are looking to enroll and access that. You have the update of our Bank on Forum, which will be Wednesday, April, sorry, I'm getting my dates already mixed up. April, let's go back one. It'll be April 8th. And then lastly, we have a faith, finance, and home ownership strategy that we did. In November, we did an event with some of our faith partners to talk about accessing financial information and tools and resources. That event kind of spun into a strategy with some of our faith partners who want to bring those financial wealth building tools to their communities as they provide a lot of services or ministries within their faith organizations. They want to couple that with financial education, financial resources. And so we have a strategy which we're building out the capacity of these faith partners to do that and expand upon that. And we'll release more information about that. If you know of any faith leaders or partners that are in that space, that are interested in joining that conversation. We're looking for some co-creators. We have a handful of folks. We're looking to expand it to ensure we have all regions. If you know of anyone, please send them or connect them to us. Lastly, for our educate and advocate for public policy pillar, this next meeting, we're going to look forward to as of, Friday, will be the close of legislation or to the close of the period to introduce any new legislation. And so now that will be closed on Friday, we'll take a look, and in our next meeting in March, we'll be able to see what policies have been elevated, what have actually been introduced, how do we track them, what numbers, what they've been given. So we plan on doing that as well as setting up some time to talk to our local electeds. Because out of these policies that we'll start working through the next 30 days, we'll create a policy agenda to elevate, to use and to talk with folks and some of our elected officials. From this educate and advocate for public policy pillar has stemmed some local advocacy opportunities, which I'll let some folks, I know Dan is on here. I was going to give him a little bit of space to talk about that, but also wanted before that to elevate on April 26th, we have a special presentation from the city of Redlands. As we've seen different projects kind of come up, and Home Key and Housing First is a part of our conversation around the region. We wanted to elevate a recent project where in our region that has drawn down Home Key funds and just talk about the impact that it's made, the good, the bad, and all things. And so we have that special presentation set for March 26th. The time will be released soon. I was hoping to get it before this meeting today, but we're still backing in sometime in the afternoon. We'll send that out to the general collective. So if you're interested in jumping on that and listening to that, it'll probably be about 40 minutes in length. And so maybe it will extend the full hour, but I'll send that out to everyone. It'd be a great learning opportunity as this is a recent conversation that's bubbled up within our region. So I want to open this up to folks. The collective in January was able to provide a letter of support for the Riverside Housing Development Corporation, their project at University Terrace Homes, to support the funding and approval of the home key funds that were drawn down from the state. It was rejected, but there's some groups, some folks within the collective, including the collective, that have done some education work. Some have done a little bit of advocacy work, but I just wanted to open this time up to provide any updates or any opportunities for folks to support or intersect with that if they'd like to.
Certainly, I'll jump in now. Or is it March 26th or February 26th on the Redlands presentation?
I'm so sorry. It is February. I was talking about March pillar dates. It is. Thank you for that correction. It is a week from tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you
Great.
for that correction.
Yes, the University Terrace is a 114 unit home key project funded by a $20.1 million state grant that was turned down by the Riverside City Council. The project total is $29 million, the other $9 million coming from federal pass-through dollars. Groups are still engaged in trying to see if the city council members who oppose that would reconsider that issue. There is a meeting at 6 o'clock on Friday of groups to come around and discuss that project, as well as just the state of affordable housing in Riverside. It has generated both the potential for litigation and a letter by Inland Legal Services, along with ACLU and one other entity, about a 6-page letter outlining potential discrimination, as well as pointing out against people with disabilities as the seniors and veterans who would be served, 94 homeless seniors and veterans who would be housed in that project, all would be suffering from probably dual diagnosis, including substance abuse and or mental illness. They've also, the State Department of Housing and Community Development has sent a letter to Riverside expressing their deep concern about their lack of progress toward affordable housing for those in the lowest income area, where Riverside has produced 0 units. And they've said they are going to take a look at the pro-housing designation of the city of Riverside, which gives them priority in seeking grant funds from the state. So there's a lot at stake in this issue. A lot of people are continuing to see if any of the city council members, one of 4, would reconsider their vote. This week, Spectrum News featured Housing First, an example by Path of Life and a participant, and then interviewed both the sponsor of the bill from the City Council, Ward 2 City Council member Clarissa Cervantes, and one of the leaders of the opposition, Sean Mill from Ward 5. So if you haven't seen that, certainly we can make that available to you. It's a very good piece. Some of us are also discussing educating, and I know at Inland SoCal Housing Collective, Melanie and interns are researching Housing First. And so really looking at how do we evaluate Housing First as an effective option for housing the homeless, and also how do we educate the public about Housing First so there's a better understanding of how it works, and to the extent it does help people who enter without treatment, but treatment is made available to stabilize their lives. Any questions?
Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, Damien, do you want to add to that?
I think you covered it quite well. I'll just say that we've actually completed the research components on this. It's just a matter of now packaging it in a way that's very consumer friendly. But as suspected, overwhelmingly the evidence is in favor of housing first. There are areas in which other approaches seem to work a little bit better, but not significantly. And I'll also say that, and for the good of all of us, part of where this has been conflated in where people are not trying to manipulate the situation, but just misunderstand it, is because so many efforts have been tagged as housing first that actually aren't housing first. So their results get pulled into the housing first results, which then provides fodder for the opposition.
Just to be specific, Damien, we've seen that in the room key, which isn't a housing first model. It was just vouchers for housing the homeless in hotels without support wraparounds. And there have been some problems in at least Riverside, but potentially other communities around that.
Awesome. Well, I know we've gone over time and I appreciate the final 25 holding on to the end. So I truly appreciate you all, but I'll hang on for a little bit if anyone has any questions, but I officially want to close the meeting and say thank you for the extra 4 minutes from you all. I look forward to seeing you all next month or in any of our pillar meetings. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Great job, Melanie. Good presentation today.
Thanks, George. Thanks for coming on.
I'll circle back with you soon.
Hey, if you're interested in joining that faith, I don't know, because I know you're doing development stuff right now. So I don't know if you want to extend into wealth building or if you want to be a part of that conversation or leave it to some of your colleagues and partners you work with.
No, I'm excited to know more about the opportunity. You know, I always want to support the work that you're doing and see if there are linkages to the things that we're doing in the faith community very specifically. And so I welcome an opportunity to be there. Send me the information that I need.
Okay, we're going to have a planning breakfast March 26th. And so I know we got a couple folks from, like, Mark is going to come, Pastor Beckley, he's Associate Pastor Elia. He is out of a small Baptist church in, I think, Rialto.
Okay.
We have Dr. King, who's a part of Loma Linda and Seventh-day Adventist. She's coming and she covers all of SoCal.
Okay, Dr. Linnea King. Yeah, she's a beast.
Yeah. So actually, we're meeting with her separately prior. She can't come, but she's sending one of her staff members to come who will be a part of the conversation. So we have her buy-in. She's sending a staff member.
Absolutely. If you have an opportunity to request somebody, ask her to send Alfonso Green from Mount Rubidoux.
Thank you. Okay, that's good to know.
He's the lead pastor there, and that's probably the largest SDA church in our region, especially African American SDA. And he's a brilliant young man. He'll add real value to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for elevating that. That's good because we don't know who, so that's really good. We could request or ask for them to attend. So if you're available, feel free. I'll send you the info. Just let me know because we're solidifying numbers. We're expecting like about 10.
No, I'll respond right away. Just send me
Okay.
the info and I'll check my calendar and make sure I'm in town. And if I am, I'm there.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, George.
Be well.
Nancy, are you there?
I am. I just didn't know if you were. I just had a question. Would you mind to send me that slide?
Yeah. Do you want me to? I could show it to you now, or I could send it to you. What is your preference?
Yeah.
Show you now?
Yeah, that would be. I mean, if you have a minute.
Yeah. No, I do. I have a minute, and it's right here. I just couldn't. I had a couple slides up, and I'm not very navigating and being on. I'm always like, okay,
it's okay.
Let me find it. So let me see here. I have it right here. I just need to actually share it. Share screen.
I seen you at the shared housing event in Riverside, and I was trying to get to you. You were on the other side of the building. You're
Oh,
closest to the wall on the other side.
oh yeah, yeah. I know.
Oh, is that all I missed?
This is the first slide, and then this is the
Okay.
second
I
slide.
didn't know if it had like any stat. Yeah, I got all that. So, okay, that's it. That's what I wanted to see. I didn't know if it had like content. It's more of an introductory. So I
Yeah.
didn't know if I missed anything. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, that was it. So, yeah, I was
Okay.
able to do the shared housing just like the one afternoon because honestly, the city of Riverside, University Terrace projects just like took over like 2 weeks of my life just because of the public comment we were trying to mobilize and
Oh,
stuff. So I was at that. I had planned on being there the whole time, but because that came up, I had to pivot and only do a portion of.
oh, no
But it
worries.
was
Well,
a great
I just
training.
wanted to know. I was trying to get over to say hello, but there'll be
Yeah.
other
No,
ones.
there was a lot of people too.
There sure were. Oh, okay. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.